Well, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another exciting lecture by your favorite speaker, Dr. Ronald Brown. As those of you who've been following me for some time know that my central theme is the relationship between religion and politics, church and state on a global basis, but with special emphasis on the future. As I speak, we are finishing up the year 2020, moving into the year 2021, well into the 21st century. And if you want to be dramatic, well into the third millennium. Religions around the world are in the news. As I pick up my daily newspaper, it is always some topic, whether it is Muslims and Armenians in Azerbaijan and Armenia at war. The BJP in India is making it more and more difficult for non-Hindus to live in this country. China is returning to Confucianism as sort of a national belief system. In the United States, Donald Trump was just ousted from office along with his evangelical Christian base supporters. And incoming is President Biden with a completely different approach to world religions and politics. In Israel, Netanyahu is building new settlements, ethnic cleansing in Jerusalem, and the war between Judaism and Islam continues. So world religions, politics are a feature of the present. They've been a feature of the past. And as Samuel P. Huntington argues in his book, The Clash of Civilizations, the 21st century, if not the third millennium, is going to be an age of religious warfare. So today we are going to analyze another chapter in this global confrontation, this global war of religions. If you can pronounce the title of today's talk, Chrismahanukwanzakah, then you get an extra point on your final exam. It is going to be devoted to how New York City invented the holiday season. As I'm speaking, we are in the early days of December 2020. We just went through the beginning of the New York holiday season, which is the Macy's parade, with the last float being Santa Claus, launching us into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, I think it's called, and then we have Hanukkah in there, and then we move up to Christmas, and then Kwanzaa, and then finishing it up with the ball drop at Times Square. This holiday season from the end of November to the beginning of January is an American invention. And so the theme today is holidays. Holidays are one of the universal building blocks of all religions. Every religion has a holiday. They serve different functions. They can be educational, such as when a little child looks at the creche in a Catholic church and sees baby Jesus and Joseph and the three kings and the star. It is educational. Or when at a Passover meal, a little kid asks, how is this night different from all others? And they get the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Holidays can also be fun. Think of the big feasts at the end of Ramadan, where kids get new clothes, they have gifts giving, and tons of food. But holidays are important for various other reasons. So today we're going to analyze the destiny of an holiday, Christmas, and how in New York it was transformed into a secular holiday season. So, outline. Early controversies surrounding Christmas. Christmas as a holiday has been controversial for centuries. Christmas in New York, how New York took Christmas and adapted it to a new environment. Christmas emerges as an extended holiday season. Well, like every holiday, there is the financial aspect, whether you're buying Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Passover or Christmas gifts, businessmen are there. Inclusive. The holiday was no longer just Christmas in New York, but it became a secularized holiday season, which everyone could celebrate of any or no religion. And then the Chrismahanukwanzakah ended up going global. I've celebrated the holiday season in half a dozen different countries because my semester at Touro College here in New York finishes just before Christmas, and I'm on the first plane out to someplace else, whether it is Ethiopia or Argentina or Mexico or Thailand or China or Russia, wherever. So I have been somewhere every time, a different country for part of the holiday season. So let's get going. Early controversy surrounding Christmas. Well, according to the Bible, nobody knows when Jesus was born. There was no December 25th in the Bible. Now, this is very important because if you look at the Jewish Bible, it tells you when precisely Passover holiday is to be celebrated. If you look at the Quran, it specifies exactly when the holiday of Ramadan is to be celebrated. If you look at the Christian Bible, it tells you very clearly when Easter was. But when you look at the Christian Bible, and far as Christmas is concerned, there's no indication. Whether it was in the winter, whether it was in the spring, whether it was in the summer or the fall, no information. So why did the Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholics, and even the Egyptian and Ethiopian Orthodox churches choose December 25th? Well, December 25th, according to the Roman Empire, which was the time of Jesus, celebrated a major winter holiday called Saturnalia in honor of the god Saturn, after which the planet is named, and after which we get our name Saturday in honor of a Greek and Roman god. So all the pagans were out there celebrating and drinking and partying. So the Christians said, well, it's really tough to have our people just sit at home and do nothing on this big, riotous, fun holiday season. So the Christians decided that henceforth, December 25th will be the official birth date. And it was accepted by all of the ancient churches, the Roman Catholics in Western Europe, the Orthodox in Eastern Europe, and in the Middle East, the Syriac, the Armenian, the Georgian, and in Africa, the Egyptian and Ethiopians, all accepted December 25th. Well, Christmas holiday took off, whether it is artwork as on the right-hand picture, paintings depicting the birth of Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and all of the events surrounding this miraculous birth. Ethiopians have a great tradition of art. In Germany, we see Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, the famous hymn, Silent Night, which is just directly associated with the holiday season. So Christmas really took off. And from the very first centuries after Christ, it just grew and became a traditional religious holiday with food, with drinking, with gift giving, everything associated with any celebratory holiday. Well, along came Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation. in the early 1500s. Well, Martin Luther, a good German monk, Catholic monk, started having some questions about the state of the Catholic Church. Bishops in Germany were political appointments. You paid enough money, became a bishop. Monasteries and convents controlled vast expanses of land across Northern Europe, as well as France and Spain. And you'd think that these monks and nuns were more a business establishment than they were a religious establishment. And so Martin Luther started going back to the source of this all, the Christian Bible. And he said, there are no bishops in the Bible. There are no monks and convents and monasteries. That's not in the Bible. Jesus never said that priests should be celibate, not getting married. There are no popes in the Bible. There is St. Peter, but Jesus never said, you are the Pope and you will be the first of a long line of popes living in Rome. Martin Luther said, well, in Germany, we don't speak Latin. Only an educated elite can speak Latin. So why should we use a foreign language? Started going over the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church, rejected half of them. Sometimes he said 3. Some later reformers said there were only 2. Martin Luther said, why do we have statues and organs and hymns during the Mass on Sunday and during the day? Well, he got rid of statues, but the Germans loved music, so they kept organs and they kept their loving hymns such as Silent Night, Holy Night. The Catholics celebrated the Eucharist, the Mass, several times every day, nonstop. And Martin Luther said, maybe we should start putting a good, solid sermon, Bible study in place of this ritual. Martin Luther said Mary veneration had gotten out of hand. Every Catholic church had Blessed Virgin Mary and statues and holidays, and said, none of this is in the Bible, let's junk it. Well, when it came to Christmas, December 25th, which is clearly not in the Bible, Martin Luther compromised, and he said, well, we do need a holiday. It's one of these universal building blocks of all religion. If we get rid of all the holidays, well, then what are the Christians going to do? They're going to join another church. They're going to drift away. Plus, the Germans had their Christmas tree. They had their hymns. They had their Christian feasts, Christmas feasts. And so he kept Christmas. Well, John Calvin, another reformer, came in and said, hey, if it's not in the Bible, it's not Christian, which means no stained glass windows with pretty pictures. There are no saints in the Bible. Get rid of saints and the veneration of saints and praying to saints, as Catholics love to do. He even got rid of church organs, saying we don't need music instruments. You want a concert, go to the opera. Come to church to read the Bible, to pray. And he went through the holidays saying, well, Christmas is not in the Bible. Get rid of it. Easter is in the Bible, so it will be celebrated. Saint days, days devoted to the veneration of saints, are not in the Bible. Get rid of them. So a veritable war about Christmas broke out. Now, we think of the Protestant Reformation as theology and great lofty ideas, but in fact, a lot of times it was being fought over very mundane things, like should we celebrate Christmas or not? Well, Europe was literally split in two. The map on the right, the purple areas show the areas that became Lutheran. Northern Germany, Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia became Lutheran. In England, British part, the English part, the brown part became Anglican or Church of England. Scotland became followers of John Calvin and became Presbyterians. But even throughout Europe, there were many followers of Calvin, the so-called Reformed Christians. And these would include the city of Geneva. Holland became followers of the radical Reformation of John Calvin. French Huguenots, the American Puritans, Baptists, Methodists, Quakers, all became radical Christians. In Holland, they became followers of Calvin. But the Dutch, who went on to establish New Amsterdam, or as we call it today, New York, sort of compromised. They said, well, all right, if we're going to get rid of Christmas, since there's nothing in the Bible there, we will continue to celebrate sort of as our national religious holiday, the Feast of St. Nicholas, which was celebrated on December 6th. The Dutch loved St. Nicholas, as we're going to see, so did the Dutch in New York. So they compromised. They said, we'll get rid of Christmas because it's not in the Bible, but on St. Nicholas, everybody will give gifts and eat and drink and be merry. So a civil war tore Europe apart over Christmas. Well, our Puritan ancestors, who were radical Calvinists, migrated, as we know, to what became Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, up to New Hampshire and Maine, and they were fiercely opposed to Christmas. Christmas was banned. It was a working day. Anybody who even called in sick back in the 1600s was visited by the police to make sure there were no banned holiday festivities going on. So this religious war between the Christmas faction and the anti-Christmas faction even spread to the 13 colonies. Well, New York was, unlike the colonies of New England, which were radically Puritan and anti-Christian, anti-Christmas, I should say, New Amsterdam from the beginning had difficulty attracting settlers. And so the Dutch basically threw open the gates of immigration, saying anybody can come here as long as you work and you don't become a burden on society, you are welcome. So back in the Dutch colonial period, you had a plethora of religious groups. You had Lutherans. There were Dutch Lutherans as well as German, French Huguenots. The English came over. You had Dutch Christians all over. Up in Flushing, you had English Quakers who were anti-Christmas. You had Baptists who were anti-Christmas. You had the English Episcopalians who celebrated Christmas. You had German Lutherans who celebrated Christmas. French Huguenots who were sort of split down the middle whether to maintain this holiday or not. Scotch Presbyterians viciously opposed to Christmas. So the religious wars, the wars of religion, which had ravaged Europe, were transplanted to New York City, and before that, New Amsterdam, beginning in 1624. And when the English took over in 1664, the war over Christmas continued. Well, the Dutch also brought, as I mentioned, the holiday of St. Nicholas. Well, we see a picture of New Amsterdam on the left. In the middle, we see a church. That is the Church of St. Nicholas. The Dutch had a nice feeling towards St. Nicholas, and they built the first church shortly after the colony was founded in 1628. They didn't celebrate Christmas, but on December 6th, everybody was giving gifts and food and candy and celebrating. And here we see a representation of Dutch Saint Nicholas. Once again, he's dressed as a bishop, which is what he was, with bags of gifts and goodies for the children. Well, Saint Nicholas had a very nice reputation. He was the bishop of the city of Myra, which is today in Turkey. He lived from 270 to 346 and is accepted and venerated by both Roman Catholics. On the left, you see him dressed as a Catholic bishop, and the Orthodox Church. On the right, you see him dressed as an Orthodox bishop. Well, he had a nice tradition. In ancient, now at that time it was still the Roman Empire that ruled Turkey, he had a tradition of giving gifts to young girls who didn't have the dowry to get married. Back then, if a young girl wanted to get married, she had to bring some material thing to the dowry, either money or clothing or a piece of land or some animals. When my mother got married to my father, she was the last in our family to use the dowry system. When my father picked her up to take her and to get married, in the back of his truck was a milk cow. And that was my mother's dowry, which is an insurance policy. My father would get sick of my mother and throw her out. She could claim her cow back. So at least she could have some resources to live on. So that's what St. Nicholas was famous for, a much beloved man who made it possible for many, many poor young girls to get married and to have a family of their own. Well, this was celebrated by the Dutch. Christmas was generally not celebrated. The Quakers in Flushing and the Baptists in Flushing and the Scots in Brooklyn and Queens didn't celebrate Christmas, but they gradually started celebrating this wonderful holiday of St. Nicholas. Well, in 1664, the English took over New York, and New Amsterdam became New York. On the picture on the left, you see Peter Stuyvesant marching out of the fort, handing Fort Amsterdam over to the English. Well, the English took over the city, and they wanted everybody to know that henceforth it was going to be an Episcopal city, or the Church of England. Picture on the right, we see Lower Manhattan at the time, and the big church tower that we see in the distance, that was Trinity, the Episcopal Church built by the English. And the English were proud Christmas celebrators. So suddenly the Dutch city, which had been celebrating St. Nicholas with nothing on Christmas, suddenly Christmas became the national holiday of the new colony of New York. Already in 1740, Handel's beautiful music of the Messiah was performed in New York City to add fun and to attract people to Christmas holidays and Christmas celebrations. So the English were pro-Christmas, along with the German Lutherans, and anti-Christmas were the English Puritans, the English Quakers, the Scotch Presbyterians, and the situation was tenuous. Well, in 1786, for the first time, Catholics were allowed to live in New York City. Under the Dutch and under the English, the Catholics had been banned from both New Amsterdam and New York. Any other Christian was allowed, even the first Jews were allowed, but Catholics were not. Well, with the rise of the new United States and the separation of church and state and freedom of religion, New York changed the law and permitted the immigration of Catholics. 1786, St. Peter's Catholic Church was established. On the right, we see today's St. Peter's Church, which is the second church on that spot. Well, the Catholics, whether they were German or Irish or French or Spanish or Polish or Italian, who started trickling into the city, Christmas was their central holiday. And every church had the creche on the left, where you see the angel, you see the Star of Bethlehem, you see the three kings, you see baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and you see the animals, the sheep. Well, here again, that's how you taught the Bible. Catholics didn't read the Bible. They had pictures. We had statues, and we taught it through the means of the creche. Little kids would be there, and mommy and daddy and grandparents and aunts and uncles would all explain, well, this is Balthazar, the great king of the East. That's Joseph, and that's Mary, and you know what those are. Those are called sheep, and there's a cow over there. That's the angel with the Star of Bethlehem. And oh, this was the way Catholics learned Catholicism. The mass invasion of Irish and Germans also further reinforced the Christmas faction in New York. On the left, we see St. Patrick's, the Irish church, which became the cathedral. On the right, we see the Most Holy Redeemer, called the German Cathedral. German Catholics flooded in to the United States and especially New York in the mid-decades of the 1800s. Well, there was an issue in the United States. The United States was a new country. We know the American Revolution, 1776, independence, George Washington, the first president. Well, every country has national holidays. In England, you celebrate the birthday of the Queen or the King. You have French Bastille Day. You have days celebrating independence, celebrating the great presidents, President's Day. So you have national holidays in addition to religious holidays. Well, New York and the United States, when it was established, it didn't have any national or secular holidays that everybody could celebrate. If you were Jewish, you celebrated Hanukkah. If you were Muslim, you celebrated Ramadan. If you were Catholic, you celebrated Christmas. If you were Reformed Christian or Dutch or Scottish, you would celebrate the holiday of St. Nicholas. But there were no national holidays. And so the United States needed a holiday to unite all Americans. And unfortunately, Christmas wouldn't do because it was a Christian holiday rejected by half of the Protestants, rejected, not celebrated by Jews or Muslims, and even atheists were not attracted to these stories of virgins giving birth to babies and stars and all of that kind of stuff. So there was need for a national, authentic American holiday. Well, rather than invent a whole new holiday, as eventually happened with the 4th of July, President's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, and all of these, the initial impulse was to take this Christmas St. Nicholas Day and to secularize it, meaning take out the religious content and make it a holiday that even an atheist or a pagan or a Jew could celebrate, or a fierce dyed-in-the-wool Presbyterian or Quaker Baptist could celebrate. Well, this was undertaken by a New York clergyman, Episcopal clergyman, Church of England, professor of theology, named Clement Clarke Moore. Well, what he did was he merged this Christmas holiday and St. Nicholas Day. His famous book, which we all know, his story, is The Night Before Christmas, or A Visit from St. Nicholas. Well, two holidays were merged. The night before Christmas, December 24th, and the visit of St. Nicholas, December 6th, were combined into one holiday. And while the name Christmas was kept, Christ's Mass, the name St. Nicholas was kept, a Greek Orthodox bishop. But if you look at the picture, we have the beginning in 1823 of a secular figure. Now, when you look at that guy with a white beard and a red hat and stuff, and the toys below, it does harken back to St. Nicholas, but there are no crosses, there are no pictures of Jesus or baby Jesus or anything. We're already seeing the secularization of St. Nicholas. The next big step was Washington Irving, one of the very first and greatest American New York City writers. Well, he recognized that this new country needed a bunch of holidays, really like every other country. We had a flag, we had a president, we were building a new capital, Washington, D.C. We had presidents and Congress, but we also needed holidays, sort of as if the ancient universal building block of all religions, holidays, was resurging and coming back and saying, hey, if you're going to be a religion or a government, you need a holiday, so get on the stick and create one. Well, Washington Irving wrote a book in 1820 called The Keeping of Christmas at Bracebridge Hall, which was a how-to book, how the people back in good old England celebrated Christmas. So it was a fictitious account showing what they ate, how they decorated the house, how they danced, how they partied back among the upper English class, and saying Americans should adopt this holiday. 1856, still another book called Old Christmas from his sketchbook. Once again saying, well, Christmas is a nice holiday. And in fact, Americans, many Americans, have been celebrating it for centuries. And that this was a great American tradition that should be encouraged. So it is a holiday that Americans were encouraged to celebrate. And Washington Irving's books were widely popular as a how-to book, how to become an American, how to become a civilized person, how to celebrate this new holiday. Another New Yorker came into the picture, Thomas Nast, a German immigrant. He was an illustrator. Back before they had photographs in magazines, back before they even had cameras, it was an illustrator who would draw pictures such as the one we see here in the picture. And during the Civil War, Thomas Nast adopted Christmas as a way of rallying the troops. So this character, you can see it in the picture on the right, showing Santa Claus, as the name was already, and at Santa Claus, no longer St. Nicholas, but he's becoming a name called Santa Claus, which is the Dutch. Santa means saint, Klaus means Nicholas. And so St. Nicholas was losing his name that he had and is becoming this new creature called Santa Claus. But if you look at the picture, you see he's very nationalistic, giving gifts to the troops and to the kids, the boys who were following the troops. But yet he has sort of a pointed, funny hat. He has a white beard, has a red coat, which you see in a colored illustration with stars. And if you look at his pants, those are not his underwear showing through. Those are his striped pants. So here again, this is a national figure. And Christmas was being adopted by the federal government as a national holiday. Here again, we see more drawings by Thomas Nast. We see the kids getting gifts. On the right, we see the family sitting before the fireplace with Christmas decorations above the fireplace. On the left, we see a family celebration, a man probably dancing with his little daughter. Another development is at the bottom, where people started going out to celebrate Christmas. It wasn't just in the family or in the church, but secular entertainment, such as Handel's Messiah, which is still a religious piece. But you went to the theater, you had plays of families celebrating Christmas, and it became a social event. But yet it is still largely religious. It does say Merry Christmas to all, so Christ is still in Christmas. But you look above and you see one of Thomas Nast's various images of this new Santa Claus, which was emerging. Thomas Nast had various attempts at what this new guy was going to be, but he was clearly secular. There's nothing religious. Even on the right, Thomas Nast kidnapped him from Turkey on the Mediterranean and banished him to the North Pole, where he had a dog. And even on the left, you see Santa Claus in his Union suit dancing up in the North Pole, and he has already a wife, something a good Greek Orthodox bishop would never agree to. Finally, Thomas Nast settled on the picture on the right. And there we see the Santa Claus, which you would all recognize, fat, white beard, holly in his hair, bags of gifts for kids. The only thing we wouldn't accept today would be smoking. I mean, you can't give gifts to children and be around children, or even indoors and smoking the old Dutch pipe. But still, this is the image that Thomas Nast settled upon and was accepted by the world. On the left, we see Thomas Nast's earlier version, but we also see, very important part, the absorption of the German Christmas tree into the holiday season. And you can see from the sky behind the tree was still outside. It was a pine tree that was decorated in someone's front yard or in a park. But yet the Christmas tree was already being absorbed into this American, or I should say New York, holiday. One of the American diplomats to Mexico in 1825, Ambassador Joel Poinsett, discovered that there was this lovely plant that just grew everywhere in Mexico, and it was the perfect colors for a Christmas plant. So he brought back one of them, and of course nobody could pronounce the name as it was in Spanish, because it wasn't a Spanish name, it was an old Indian name going back to the ancient Mexica people. And so they just called it the Poinsett plant, named after the ambassador, and today we call it the Poinsettia. Gradually, the holiday absorbed not only the German Christmas tree, but it absorbed the Mexican Poinsett plant. Eggnog from Britain was accepted. Wreaths were accepted from Germany. Holly was taken as an evergreen plant, saying it remains green with berries even in the middle of the winter. So the holiday season, still called Christmas, still featuring Saint Nicholas, but a secularized Santa Claus figure was gradually taking shape. Well, any holiday to be successful has to have some good, strong supporters. And what better supporters are well-to-do businessmen? Into the story comes Thomas Edison, who electrified Christmas beginning in 1880. Now, he's famous for electricity and telephone and all of that. But as far as our holiday season is concerned, he is very famous for inventing the first electric string of lights. You can see the advertisement on the right from John Wanamaker in New York City, the General Electric Company. Edison ready to use electric lighting outfits for Christmas decorations. Well, we can see here that this holiday is appealing to people who could afford electricity. Back then, the generating plant of New York was, I believe, in Lower Manhattan. And if you wanted electricity, you had to string cables from your house, wherever it was, to the generating plant. And it was only the wealthy who could afford it. But it enabled, for the first time, the tree to be safely brought inside because there were no more candles which risked burning down the house. And so the tree was brought inside. I love this advertisement because you look at the man and the woman, especially the man. I mean, he's wearing more formal clothing to decorate his Christmas tree than I do when I go to the Metropolitan Opera. I mean, you'd think he'd take off his jacket, his vest, and loosen his tie and get a bit comfortable climbing up down that ladder. But it again shows that Christmas was being adopted by the upper class as an American institution. Still called Christmas, but featuring the secularized St. Nicholas, who's no longer a bishop. And Edison did more than anybody to electrify Christmas, and of course, made a fortune doing it. See this ornamental spray of small lamps, which would be a centerpiece at your Christmas dinner table. On the right, you see strings of lights going around the dining room. Old advertisements just once again, look at that dining room. That is not a new immigrant on the Lower East Side. This is a well-to-do family around Washington Square or sneaking up Fifth Avenue. Well, of course, lights have become a permanent fixture of the holiday. In Brooklyn, it's Dyker Heights, which people drive from miles away to see the monumental and very expensive home decorations. I remember as a kid growing up in rural Pennsylvania, houses competed to have the most beautiful outdoor lighting. It was a big event for my father to pile all of us 8 kids in the car and go driving around the neighborhood of this small town of 2,000 people to see all of the Christmas lights. Another industry which emerged to celebrate this new emerging holiday was the Christmas card industry, Hallmark cards and many others. Once again, even if they still use the word Christmas, there's no Greek Orthodox bishop anymore. It is the Santa Claus, totally secularized figure. Well, Christmas started emerging. We had the Christmas holiday. People started either going to church or going to the theater, giving gifts, decorating their trees indoors, and Christmas was emerging as a secular holiday. Well, in 1907, another big event occurred, which was added to this emerging holiday season. And that was the first ball drop at Times Square. 1907, the new New York Times building at Times Square and 42nd Street was finished. And to celebrate the gala opening of the new headquarters of the New York Times, the owners decided to have a festive display of lights. Remember, 1907 was the golden age of electricity. Broadway was called the Great Light Lit Way, the street of lights. People would go out at night and go window shopping because the lights were aglow in the stores. You could have nightlife, which you had electricity, bars and restaurants and clubs, Broadway theaters with their sparkling lights. And so in 1907, the first ball dropped. Well, exactly 1 week following the Christmas holidays created the first holiday season, not 2 separate holidays. Schools were closed for that week. Colleges closed down, and gradually there was a week-long holiday. Well, another merchant who jumped on the bandwagon was F.W. Woolworth. And he founded his famous Woolworth stores in 1878. And as this holiday season was growing, he went to Germany and signed an exclusive marketing agreement with the German manufacturers of Christmas tree glass bulbs. Well, he sold the small ones for 5 cents and the big ones for 10 cents. And that is the origin of the 5 and 10 cent store, or the 5 and dime store. Well, of course, he made a fortune selling Christmas tree decorations and, of course, gifts. On the right, we see some of the old vintage hand-painted glass decorations, which F.W. Woolworth had the monopoly on. Well, he did more than sell them in his New York stores, but he also pioneered the mail order catalog. You can imagine getting the Christmas story book from Woolworth's and the gift catalog below it. I mean, this catalog was sent nationwide. You could live in some godforsaken place in Idaho and North Dakota, and your tree could feature the latest in German beautiful Christmas tree decorations. He informed you what the kids wanted this year. I mean, of course, back then there weren't Adidas sneakers and laptops and video games, computer games and stuff like that. It was clothing. So the kid could go to school after the holiday season and show off his gifts, just like the kids in New York City. Well, on the left, we see a painting of the famous Woolworth building on Broadway, just across from City Hall. And this was the skyscraper that 5 and dime priced Christmas bulbs built. This was the national headquarters of F.W. Woolworth. Well, the British tried to add still another typically British holiday, and that was called Boxing Day on December 26. And I have British friends who celebrate Christmas, but the Boxing Day is the big day. And Boxing Day does not mean it's a sports day, but since the wealthy people who lived in manor houses, such as the one in the picture, they celebrated Christmas, which means they had guests, tons of food, people staying overnight, entertainment for the kids. So the day following Christmas, the master and the mistress of the manor house would make up boxes of leftovers, a bottle of wine or whiskey, food, roast chicken, fruits, and all kinds of candies. And each of the employees who had worked so hard the day before and the days before would be given the day off with their box of goodies. So this is a holiday which I had to add because I gave this talk once and my friends from Britain were irate that I didn't mention this still rather little known holiday season event in America, but still kept proudly by the British. Well, the next big step in the evolution of this holiday came in 1924, when another businessman jumped on the bandwagon and said, well, I'm going to have a big parade. And this parade is not going to be down Fifth Avenue, where most New York parades go. It's going to be down Broadway. And it's going to be celebrating Thanksgiving, which was finally scheduled at about that time as the 4th Thursday of November. Or sometimes there's a 5th Thursday, but this was the 4th. So the last float in this Thanksgiving Day parade is, of course, Santa Claus. So Mr. Macy was basically saying, follow the parade, celebrate Thanksgiving, goes down Fifth Avenue, and it ends where? Macy's department store. So bring your bag of dollars or today your credit cards and shop until you drop. Well, this was the second bookend, if you will, of the holiday season. It began with the Thanksgiving Day parade, the last float, and it ended at New Year. So basically, we are having a month and a week, about 6 weeks of holiday season, which includes Thanksgiving, still includes the old St. Nicholas, December 6th, which the Dutch kept. It then was Christmas, a bit of secularized Christmas that everybody could celebrate, finishing up with the New Year's ball drop. So there by 1924, we had the dates firmly established, the big opening date and the ending date. Well, of course, gradually, Thanksgiving, last float, morphed into a series of new holidays. Gray Thursday, meaning Macy's will be open when the parade stops at it. So just go in and go shopping. And then other stores started opening on Gray Thursday, followed by the biggie, which was Black Friday. Then we have now recently Cyber Monday, when you can go shopping online. So business adopted this growing holiday season with gusto. 1931, another addition was the lighting of the Rockefeller Christmas tree to celebrate the opening of the new Rockefeller Center Plaza. Of course, Rockefeller Center was being built during the Great Depression. Well, what do people need during a depression? A great new holiday. And so we see the picture, an early picture, rather scrawny looking tree with the workers who were building it, with St. Patrick's Cathedral in the background. Today, we see what it looks like now, a giant tree with a star, millions of lights, angels and trumpets and the whole works. Another holiday added to the emerging and ever-growing holiday season. Well, many other people realized that there was money in this holiday season. Hollywood started coming up with all kinds of movies. The Grinch. If you look at the date, you see the November 17. So Hollywood is even extending the pre-holiday season. All I Want for Christmas. I mean, more Christmas and holiday movies than you can shake a stick at. Radio City Music Hall at the new Rockefeller Center started performing the Nutcracker Suite with music by Tchaikovsky, once again attracting millions of tourists to see these wonderful shows, to actually go shopping at Macy's, to see the Thanksgiving Day parade, to see the lighting of the Rockefeller tree. And maybe if you're religious, to go to church, but I mean, that was gradually fading away as people forgot that Santa Claus was actually a Greek Orthodox bishop, and they accepted Thomas Nast's presentation of this roly-poly fun creature. More and more holidays. National Poinsettia Day. Well, if you are an importer and a grower of poinsettias, the holiday season is your only big season. So you proclaim December 14, meaning rush out, get your poinsettia before they're gone, and fill the coffers of the greenhouses which grow them. National Candy Cane Day, the national candy. I'm sure it is sponsored by the American Dental Association. Rot your teeth, go to the dentist, but still, what kid could refuse a candy cane? Messiah sing-alongs, the Salvation Army collection, thousands of books on Christmas holiday. Once again, look at the picture. There's nothing religious at it. Joy of Christmas banjo songbook. Everybody wanted to have their own unique holiday event. National Eggnog Day, December 24th. It's again the official drink of the holiday. National Cookie Day. Well, I mean, you have to prepare these cookies well in advance. And so you put in enough preservatives so that they could probably survive for 25 years on a store shelf and still be edible. But money was to be made. Well, the secularization of St. Nicholas made the holiday a holiday that even non-religious people could celebrate. I mean, you could be an atheist and be viciously opposed to Christmas, but yet when your kids said, "Where's our Christmas tree? When is Santa Claus coming? What am I getting for Christmas?" Even an atheist had to give in to the power of the marketplace and start celebrating the holiday. Well, the holiday started growing in leaps and bounds. Famous episode in 1943. There you see Blumstein's department store on 125th Street, the commercial area of Harlem. By 1943, Harlem had become a predominantly Black neighborhood. The Jews and the white people had fled, and African Americans were filing in, millions migrating from the rural deep South, settling in Harlem, where in the 20s there was the Harlem Renaissance, flowering of African American culture. Churches were being built, and the Harlem was the Black Mecca. Well, Mr. Blumstein, who was a German Jew and had no love for African Americans, resented seeing his white and Jewish Harlem turning Black. Well, he allowed African Americans to shop in his store, but he would not hire them. Well, Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr., 1943, rallied his church, Abyssinian Baptist, and said, "This is wrong." Protesters gathered in front of his store carrying signs, "Don't shop where you can't work." Well, as the holiday season began to come along, and Mr. Blumstein knew that if people couldn't get in the front door of his store, he was going to go bankrupt. So he agreed. Adam Clayton Powell insisted, "I want you to hire Black people, and not in the room in the back unpacking boxes or not scrubbing the floors at night. I want them at the cash register. I want them in the offices." And he added, "I don't want white light-skinned African Americans. I want dark-skinned African Americans. Well, business boomed for Mr. Blumstein. And he saw that the African Americans were good, not only customers, but employees. And for the very first time, 1943, as the legend goes, the first African American Santa Claus was born. So here again, African Americans started becoming part of this new holiday season. And stores not only had models in the windows displaying clothing who were white, but there were even Black models. So with this great victory over Mr. Blumstein, African Americans started considering Santa Claus their own. Jews clambered on this growing holiday season. Irving Berlin wrote tons of holiday music. His famous White Christmas, which was made into a movie, Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye, Rosemary Clooney, Vera Ellen. Here again, White Christmas, keeping up with the secularizing trend of the holiday. There's no Jesus in this picture. It is a white Christmas, but still the name Christmas is there. Everybody was wondering, should we just start calling it the holiday season? But yet it was still Christmas, even if people just didn't even pay attention to the fact that Christ was still in Christmas. Well, that didn't stop the Jews, not just Irving Berlin, but the Lubavitchers in Brooklyn erected the largest Hanukkah in the world at Central Park. And here we see the Lubavitcher Orthodox Jewish movement lighting the candles. And so Hanukkah, which was originally a rather minor Jewish holiday, ended up growing in importance. In olden times in Europe, you had the Hanukkah Geld, which means a coin that the Jewish kids got at Hanukkah. They would light the candles one after the other each day. Well, in New York, once it became part of the holiday season, because the calendars and Christmas and Hanukkah usually correspond, suddenly kids said, what? I only get this little coin? I want a new laptop. Or the teenager said, Dad, you promised me a new car. Or the wife wanted a fur coat. And so Hanukkah gradually became one of the most important Jewish holidays, even though its origins were rather modest. Well, all kinds of activities. You had the great Hanukkah menorah lighting with the foods, latkes, donuts, hot drinks, a giant gelt drop, kids Hanukkah celebration, Hanukkah in ice on Central Park, New Year's Eve, Hanukkah celebration, Hanukkah telethon for those who were sitting at home with Jewish bands and Jewish music. Look at December 10th, part of the holiday season. Hanukkah party, the sixth night of Hanukkah. Don't just sit at home, but get out. Sunday, December 17th. So Hanukkah emerged and it became almost a reflection of Christmas with all of the outdoor holidays, shows, millions of dollars changing hands, and becoming an integral part of the holiday season. In fact, it's very common in New York and many other places. You walk into a big building, well, on one side is a Christmas tree and the other side is a menorah candlestick. So it is now part of the holiday season. Another holiday which emerged was the winter solstice, the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, celebrating the longest night of the year. Ironically, it is a pagan holiday of the winter solstice being performed inside the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. So even if you are a pagan dancing around a bonfire at the beach to celebrate the longest night of the year, well, you are still part of the holiday season. African Americans continue to invest in this growing holiday season. Ron Karenga, in 1966, a professor of African American history, invented his new holiday called Kwanzaa, drawing on East African Swahili terms, adopting the candlestick, which could be both the Jewish menorah and the Catholic Advent candles, but wearing African clothes, the red, the green, and the black of the Pan-African flag. Holiday food, holiday cheer. Even you look at the sign, it's beginning to look a lot like Kwanzaa. It goes back to the old Christmas hymn. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And on the right, you see a woman dressed in African clothing with the candelabra, the three colors, and the African food. Now, Kwanzaa is celebrated from December 26 until the end of December, an entire week of festivities. Chinese have added the Shenyun concert. Here we see it at Lincoln Center, where it is a major 2C dance and music festival contributed by the Chinese. So they have made the holiday season into a major Chinese holiday. Of course, we all know the Santa Con, begun in San Francisco, spreading around the world, where an annual drunken show that has steadily devolved and has become the drunken Santa Claus look-alike, dress up and get plastered out of your mind. So if you don't have money to spend on gifts for kids, well, you can spend it on yourself and get totally drunk. Still another holiday has joined into it, and this is the holiday of Diwali, which is the festival of lights. Now, very often Diwali is before the Thanksgiving holiday, but in neighborhoods where there are a lot of people of Indian descent, the streets are lit, such as the one in the right. Where I live here in Elmhurst, Queens, just down at Jackson Heights, there's an entire street of Little India. And as soon as the holiday of Diwali approaches, the streets are lit and they stay up throughout the holiday season. So again, expanding the breadth of the holiday season. Other internationalization of the holiday was Sri Chinmoy, a great religious leader, Hindu religious leader. And he has taken to celebrating concerts. And you see here the New York Center International Choir, Songs of Peace and Light. Here again, adding not just an African American, not just a Jewish, but a pagan and a holiday season, as well as the Chinese season. So everybody is becoming part of this season. It is a season that everybody and anybody can celebrate. Now, still, it is Christmas the centerpiece. So while Thanksgiving is secularized, Santa Claus is secularized, New Year's is secularized, still there is the Christmas element. And as I said earlier, many people have wanted to rename it the winter holiday season, but still there are enough people who consider it a essentially Christian holiday to reject this transition. Well, the holiday season and the money it brings in, the fun it brings, has spread globally. You see Merry Christmas signs all over the world in every possible language. People send cards, they have dinners in restaurants. And even if they don't even know that it is Christmas and they write a card such as the one on the right, Merry Xmas, another attempt to further secularize the holiday season. But the elements are there, whether it is an Xmas tree and there's Santa Claus with his gifts, with the bells and the ribbons, the Christmas decorations, candles, poinsettias, holly. This is still part of the Christmas season, invented in New York, but going global. Chinese Santa Claus. I mean, black Santa Claus is nothing special anymore. You have a Santa Claus of every race, creed, and color. African Christmases with the drums and African music. Below, you see another holiday season with the Christmas tree in the back, the star. I'm sure nobody knows that that is the Star of Bethlehem, but it is part of the holiday season. Above, you see it in Chinese with the tree, with people dressed in red, dressed up like Santa Claus, all kinds of food, the Christmas tree, Santa Claus flying through the sky, totally secularized and celebrated around the world. So Christmas, and especially the holiday season, has become what you consider an open-ended holiday. In China, you can put up a Christmas hat on the panda and everybody knows what it is. In some Asian countries, in China, for example, St. Nicholas, Santa Claus arrives not with reindeer, because they don't have any in China, but with dolphins pulling his sleigh. In the middle, we see an African Santa Claus with carrying the gifts, but yet with a distinctive white beard. The top on the right, we see Christmas holiday decorations. You see Hare Christmas, once again, an Indian adaptation of the holiday season. Just a plethora of holiday seasons greetings. Even in the middle, you see Santa Claus on the moon, exporting a Christmas tree. Even his reindeer have on coverings to provide oxygen on the moon. On the left, we see African angels. Angels are central to the Christmas season, as are lights. But right at the bottom, we see an Indian adaptation of Christmas. You have the holly, you have the predominance of the red color, but featuring an elephant. But of course, not everybody is happy with this globalization of Christmas. Many people equate it with Americanization, meaning American culture taking over the world. Even if it is a highly secularized holiday, it is still an instrument of American imperialism. Many read somewhere that the reindeer pulling the sleigh was described as a tinsel-covered Trojan horse. We all know the story of the Trojan horse that was brought in through the city walls, but it was filled with soldiers who emerged and ended up conquering the city. Well, many people view this sort of nice Santa Claus figure, giving gifts to children, food, holidays, shopping, materialism as a form of Christian missionary activity. Along comes Santa Claus. Well, lurking behind Santa Claus is this devious Greek Orthodox bishop out to convert nice Jews and Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists and other people to the American style Christian holiday. Well, some people have said, well, we should totally secularize Christmas and call it Good Governance Day, as they were trying to do in India, to replace this holiday with a typically Indian national holiday. On the right, we see in Israel, the Israeli soldiers at the wall where Christmas celebrations are passing through the Bethlehem wall to worship at the holiday birthplace of Jesus. In Israel, they don't celebrate New Year's. It's called Sylvester, to sort of separate it from the Christian holiday season. But even in Israel, New Year's and Christmas are celebrated. At the bottom right, you see the secret Tel Aviv guide to New Year in Israel. Israel has a law against Jews celebrating non-Jewish holidays. You can be arrested. And so Tel Aviv, which is very secularized, they have their secret guide to where you can go for a great New Year's party and watch the ball drop in Times Square. But you're always risk being arrested by the religious police. And in Israel, when I was a student, December 25th was a test day. And to show that there is resistance against the globalization of these holidays. Across the world, we see Jews saying Rosh Hashanah is our New Year's, not January 1st. Signs, pipe bomb device was attached to individual's body. Once again, bombs going off at Christmas. At the bottom, you see in Muslim attacking Santa Claus. I believe this is in Turkey. Once again, vicious opposition to this holiday. Even in the United States, there is the movement to put Christ back in Christmas. This is especially strong in the evangelical Protestant community, which is today extremely powerful in America, to make Christmas a Christian holiday again. Well, a lot of countries are trying to suppress this growing global holiday. Other people embrace it. So it is once again controversial, just as it had been back in the colonial period of New York, and just as it was during the Protestant Reformation. Should we celebrate the holiday? What does it mean? What does it symbolize? And now in the age of globalization, we might think, oh, it's just a nice Santa Claus holiday, people giving gifts. But once again, it is a religious holiday, and it engenders a lot of controversy until today. And many people see this holiday as, whether it's religious or not, as a holiday celebrating American materialism, the Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney, and the American way of life. Shop until you drop. This is the American style of living. I love the picture on the right, the overspent American, why we want what we don't need. So many people are starting to resist this holiday, not just for religious reasons, that it is a tinsel-covered Trojan horse trying to destroy Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism and other third world and other world religions around the world, but as a celebration of materialism. Shop, buy, consume. So it is very controversial, whether it's evangelical Christians, put Christ back in Christmas, whether it is Hindus, get rid of this Christmas Christian holiday, or whether it is people opposed to the crass materialism that American style living, the American way of life engenders. So this holiday season, and you can say the greatest world global holiday ever created, still remains controversial. Even though it is growing in importance, still it remains a controversial holiday. So as I get ready to celebrate Christmas, the year 2020, and as you can see, the wonderful Rockefeller Christmas tree, which will be lit very soon at Rockefeller Center, Christmas remains the first great world global holiday, filled with cultural, materialistic, religious, philosophical, national, ethnic importance. There's me on the left at a wonderful Christmas party I went to at the Russian embassy a couple years ago. Probably the first and the last time you'll ever see me wearing a suit. But once again, Christmas is a season that's difficult to resist. So once again, thank you for joining me. And if anybody has any questions or issues that they would like to bring up, please feel free to contact me at ronbrownmedia@gmail.com, and I'll get right back to you. And I hope to see you sometime in the future when we will once again be discussing religion in the world. Where's it going? Where did it come from? Who could imagine that Christmas could have been so controversial and is becoming more and more controversial as I speak? Is Samuel P. Huntington correct when he said the 21st century is going to be a century of religious warfare? Well, these are the kinds of questions I am exploring in my videos. So once again, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you sometime in the near future for another exciting program. Thank you very much. This is Ron Brown logging off.